This is my English 1301 project that covers the question, what are the causes of the opioid crisis in Ohio? There were more deaths in 2008 and 2009 in Ohio from unintentional drug overdose than from motor vehicle crashes. Ohio is ranked third among U.S. states in death rates and ranked fourth among total deaths among other U.S. states. Recently, there were over 100,000 deaths from April 2021 to May 2021 in the U.S. due to drug overdoses. The opioid crisis is a problem that affects the entire United States. However, much of its impact was on Midwestern states throughout the Rust Belt, especially states like West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. The opioid crisis has led to thousands of unintentional deaths. So, what causes this addiction? In order to understand the rise of the epidemic, we first need to understand the history of the epidemic. By the 1990s, it was estimated that over 100 million Americans suffered from chronic pain. This led to a push by the federal government and pharmaceutical companies to expand the use of painkillers. And from 1991 to 2011, the amount of painkiller prescriptions tripled from 76 million to over 219 million. While the use of opioid became widespread, so did the use of stronger and stronger drugs. American pharmacies began prescribing stronger opioids, and by 2012, 1 in 3 individuals took a drug stronger than morphine. How did this widespread usage turn into abuse, though? The Institute for Safe Medication Practices reports that over half of all prescriptions that are taken each year in the United States are misused. A study done by A. Thomas McClellan, Ph.D., Barbara Turner, M.D., MSCD, went over the use of prescription and narcotic analgesics and how they have increased since 1990. The results found that of the individuals' death they had studied, 63% of them had obtained the opioids they had overdosed on through pharmaceutical diversion. This is defined as obtaining a drug without a proper prescription and having gone through 5 or more clinicians to obtain opioids. 21% of the individuals' deaths were associated with doctor shopping, which is a process of seeing multiple treatment providers in order to illicitly obtain more prescription medication than possible with a single treatment provider. This begs the question, what role do doctors that prescribe these medications have in the opioid crisis? Are they the ones that are responsible for the opioid crisis? Or are they innocent bystanders who are a victim of a complicated and easily exploitable system? In order to find out more about the opioid crisis, I talked to a Texas addiction medicine MD PhD about the role of doctors in the prescription process of opioids. I asked the question, what, if anything, do you think should change about the prescription process? They responded with, I think with the prescription monitoring program and the new laws in place, there isn't much more I would do, as it would cause harm to those who don't abuse and do have chronic pain. It's a tough line to battle. You want to help legitimate patients, but often they are made to go through strenuous hurdles to get their legit medicine they don't abuse. Most patients now have to actually go to a pain clinic to get long-term use of opioids if they are truly needed. Pharmacists have a right to not fill a prescription if they think it's being misused or it goes against their morals. Being in addiction medicine, I have come to see a number of doctors have voluntarily limited the number of opioid prescriptions they write for patients because they fear that they might be arrested or disciplined for overprescribing. I have seen legitimate pain clinics shut down by the DEA as they had to investigate because pain clinic doctors are the only ones willing to write the longer-term scripts. The next question I asked was, what do you believe the role of doctors is in the opioid crisis? They responded with, let's start by taking a look at the history of how this all started. For example, with OxyContin, extended release. Doctors were super hesitant to give patients this medication, and the towns first targeted as tester sites were states with heavy farming and coal mining, since those professions tend to result in chronic pain or severe accidents where they will need pain meds. Doctors were told that OxyContin was time-released to last 12 hours and therefore had less than 1% addiction. The FDA even gave a special label for stating the same thing, so when pharmaceutical reps were super persistent with doctors to prescribe it, the doctors trusted it because, after all, the FDA approved it. Well, it turns out Purdue Pharma heavily manipulated data, and what they were told their drug reps to tell doctors and the literature handed out ended up being skewed and misled data. But the damage was done, and doctors therefore felt safe and started prescribing it. So do I blame doctors? No, but everything in medicine has a hierarchy, and so doctors did play a role, yes, but they were misled and misguided, especially since FDA gave it a special label. We need to work with pharmaceutical companies to make sure all data is published in public, even the ugly data. So, how can we change this process of addiction? To first understand this, I need to discuss the steps to recovery. The first stage is called pre-contemplation. This stage is characterized by lack of awareness. Even when problems are causing difficulties in their lives, people in this stage are resistant to the concept of change. The second stage is contemplation. This stage is one of growing awareness. Individuals begin to see that there are problems or certain changes that would be beneficial. Sometimes, but not always, a confrontation or a crisis brings about this growing awareness. The third stage is preparation. People rarely make immediate changes. Rather, they take their time thinking about the problems and evaluating their options. The fourth stage is action. In this stage, individuals are taking steps to alter their behavior. Whether small and tentative or large and bold, the actions taken during this stage are intended to move individuals closer to the successful resolution of their problems. The fifth stage is maintenance. This stage gets to the crux of the matter. It's the permanent establishment of a new pattern, a new habit, a new way of looking at things. That's hard to accomplish. The sixth and final stage is termination. This stage is reached when the problem no longer exists and when the temptation to relapse is no longer present. Some psychologists doubt that this stage is ever fully experienced, noting, for example, that smokers who have been clean for 25 years or more may experience an occasional craving and even relapse. This is incredibly important to know or shape how we view recovery, as addiction is an incredibly long and difficult path to travel, and the road to recovery is never simple. Some individuals are predisposed to relapse, and that they will have to repeatedly try and bounce back into recovery. Instead of putting these individuals in jail for something that is bound to happen, it's more productive to help these individuals and give them the tools to avoid relapse and help them when they do relapse.